Despite U.S. reinforcements having stemmed the tide of battle and gone over to the attack, ultimate control of the crossroads at Albeit is still in doubt. This is due to a lone Iranian T-62 that has somehow skirted the North Desert sands and is now assailing the Marine tanks from behind the village. What remains of the scout garrison is attempting to render whatever assistance they can, but... wait! Something just happened. We'll attempt to investigate. This is CyberNet reporting.
With the village of Albeit still awash in the ebb and flow of battle, the Joint Marine Combat Force finds itself stripped of the all-too-elusive prize of battlefield initiative. Thrown onto the defensive by an adventurous Iranian tank crew, the disputed settlement has once again come under siege. However, the most pressing crisis facing the Leathernecks is not the prospect of losing control of such a hard-won objective, but the mission-spoiling attack of the T-62 on the rear flank of the M1 platoon. Having crippled the command tank of Lieutenant Phillips as a direct result of their unexpected maneuver, the armored hunters are hell-bent on administering the coup de grace. At this juncture, the only thing standing between the Americans and a potentially shocking reversal of fortune may very well be the battered remnants of a fatigued reconnaissance platoon, or perhaps even that of an unexploded roadside IED. The time is 03:48 hours. Completely immobilized by two direct hits from the Iranian tank situated behind the village's west wall, Lieutenant Phillips and his crew are unharmed but in imminent peril of becoming casualties of war. Unable to gain target acquisition on their concealed assailant, the Abrams popped smoke, creating a temporary visual barrier between themselves and the T-62. This tactic, combined with the very real threat of close-quarter infantry assault from the Marines within the village, prompts the tense Iranians into relocating further south in order to regain line of sight on their vulnerable prey. In so doing, the crew unwittingly waltzes straight into the wily web of Captain Ricks.
It was my hope that the distraction created by 2nd Platoon would elicit an evasive response from the enemy, which would cause them to reposition their tank. If they reversed course, they would lose contact with Abrams 1. If they moved forward, the T-62 would pass directly over the militant's IED. They chose the latter. With very little deviation from path, the tank crept up to the shoulder of the road. My finger twitched with anticipation atop the radio transmitter button. I recall thinking to myself, "Come on, you gnarly beast." Just a little further into the snare. Instinctively, I keyed the microphone. The IED triggered with a ground-shaking eruption. Although it was apparent that several of the ancient artillery shells were duds, the explosion was more than sufficient to rip open the weak underbelly of the tank and turn its interior into a raging inferno. How ironic. The final threat to Albeit had been removed using the enemy's own insidious trap against them.
The danger to their 6 o'clock now eradicated, the tank commanders of the entire Abrams platoon re-emerge from their machines to renew their situational awareness, none more relieved as to the outcome of the battle on their rear quarter than Lieutenant Phillips himself. The improved visibility services the tankers well, as tank number 3 immediately spots the Iranian command staff boarding their idling staff car outside the Sultan's Dagger. Themselves detecting the hum of a turbine engine and the turret profile of said Abrams on the nearby ridge crest, the Iranians abruptly bail out of their vehicle. Realizing that their opportunity for escape has now evaded them, they and the heavy weapons command team attempt to return to the bastion, but a swift, high-explosive response from the M1 interrupts the attempt. Not only does the blast disable the transport, it eliminates 2 staff members, one of which is the commandant himself, who lies motionless beneath the vehicle. Without delay, the executive officer and his aide-de-camp return to the battlements. Just overhead in the fortress keep, the lone surviving Spec Ops sniper finally makes a play to re-enter the fracas and to do whatever he can to inhibit the Marine counter-assault. Scrambling out onto the Archer's terrace facing 1080G to the north, he sights 1st Squad of 3rd Platoon advancing along the roadway on the Bastion's open flank. Placing the unwitting Marines in his crosshairs, the overtly anxious marksman triggers a rapid sequence of rounds at the conglomeration of troops. Yet, his efforts yield only a single result: 1 wounded combatant. In response, the squad unleashes a fury of small arms fire at the balcony, to which the intrepid Iranian initially does not flinch. Within seconds, however, Lieutenant Phillips' command tank and the medium machine gun join in the retort against the new threat from the fortress. Unable to resist the punishment, the sniper submits to his survival instincts and abandons his prime attack position for the relative safety of the keep's dark inner sanctum. Now free to continue their trek towards reference point M. Zuma, 1st Squad exits the road so as to assail the objective from a more northerly direction. In the process, they surprise the inhabitants of a hidden scout car left inert by the earlier Cobra aerial assaults. As the startled crew frantically attempts to rotate their cupola in order to engage the exposed Marines with machine gun fire, the vehicle is struck with both an AT-4 and Law rocket, which force the Iranians to abandon their iron steed and seek cover about the adjacent structure. Pushing home the assault, the Marines convene at the building's exterior facade, where they meet meager resistance from a distraught crewman wielding an AK from inside the dwelling. Accessing one of the targeted windows, the Marines promptly dispatch their terrified assailant. Peering around the corner of the edifice, they detect the final pair of Iranians desperately clinging to the earth with their own assault rifles in hand. Shouting the caveat, "Frag out," a Marine pitches a hand grenade right into the midst of the panicked troopers. With no time to react, the 2 unfortunate Iranians are swept asunder by the blast. Wasting no time, the Marines split into 2 sections, the larger of which enters the primary structure, where they proceed to sweep clear the interior rooms and take possession of the vacated dwelling. In the meantime, the other assault team crosses the roadway and pounces into the smaller companion structure, which is likewise deserted. Reference point M. Zuma now firmly under Marine control, the No. 4 Abrams once again goes mobile and cautiously transitions up and over the lip of the wadi in order to take up a more judicious position straddling the roadway in support of the new occupants of M. Zuma. Rolling to a stop just below the north shoulder of the ridge, the tank now becomes party to another example of the capricious nature of war. Sprinting across the plain on the heels of the M1, the sniper unit lieutenant heads for the captured roadside rest stop, thus instigating the ensuing sequence of events. Immobile but still active behind the cluster of flaming wrecks along 1080G, the MV tank of 1st Platoon detects the naked jaunt of the lone Marine and makes a fatal mistake. Unable to resist the lure of assailing even a single enemy combatant, they rouse their coaxial machine gun. In so doing, the T-62 acts to inform the Abrams that the static tank's focus is no longer on the ridgeline, but on a transitory soft target. Inching forward, the M1 attains positive target acquisition. Although the T-62 has been awaiting the arrival of American armor with a special greeting in store, the brief distraction is just enough to throw the Iranian crew off task. In the blink of an eye, both tanks fire their main armament, However, it is the Abrams that wins the duel, with an AP round that resets the OP4 armor count to 5 active tanks. As for the T-62, not only does the Marine LT survive the encounter, the snap firing of a breech-loaded guided missile causes the warhead to corkscrew into oblivion. To the immediate north, the Marine Heavy Weapons Command Staff continues to traverse the dunes along the fringes of the desert sands. Meeting no resistance from the Iranian East Pincer Infantry, the survivors of which have long since departed the field, their new task is to coordinate with the recently returned scout chopper and serve as forward observers relative to any enemy armor still present in the combat zone. At the core of the Marine counterattack are the men of 2nd Squad, 3rd Platoon. With the 2 secondary objectives having been captured by their platoon mates, it is now their job to invest the imposing medieval bastion that towers over the plain. Aiding them in this risky venture will be Team Snake and the 2 medium machine guns. On the far side of the Wadi, Lieutenant Phillips M1 will also serve as direct fire support.
I was very angry with myself. My assumption that our left flank was safe from attack because of the impassable sands permitted a T-62 to sneak up on us and rob my own machine of its maneuverability. Nevertheless, there was still a mission to pursue and a battle to be won. The only gunnery-related contribution to the fight that my Abrams was now capable of was to assist in the capture of reference point Kasbah. Although we had suppressed the lone gunman in the keep, this silence would not last. 2nd Squad had scaled the steep slope leading to the bastion, and was on the verge of attaining the breach in the rampart created by the errant missile of Fox 1, when the keep came alive once again. Albeit, from a single aperture on the structure's 2nd level. The enemy sniper was obviously still active. In their own defense, the troops returned a high volume of counterfire, but their assailant was too well protected by the thick stone walls. I myself was hesitant to let loose with a high explosive shell, for fear that the flying debris might cause collateral damage to those friendlies in close proximity. As such, our only available response was a hail of lead.
Tenaciously pursuing the fight, the Spec Ops sniper does everything he can to inflict casualties on those Marines now directly beneath him. Despite the frenzy of incoming bullets and even a rocket attack, the sharpshooter uses the protection of the bastion to good effect in order to wound 2 men and incapacitate the SAW gunner. Going unnoticed by the Leathernecks during all of this commotion, the marooned Iranian XO team and Heavy Weapons Command Staff stealthily repatriate the 2 towers. Ironically, the fate of the Iranian sniper is not determined by those whom he is doing battle with at close range, nor from the consolidated firepower of the M1 machine guns or marksmen on the opposing Wadi Shelf. His demise comes about as a result of the unsolicited participation of 1st Squad, well askew the fight at M Zuma. Lobbing a series of grenades from his man-portable launcher, the Team NCO places a single round through the narrow aperture directly behind the Iranian, which abruptly ends the skirmish. So too concludes the life of the daring Special Forces marksman. Pausing behind his shattered task force's last line of defense, that being the MV picket line, Aziz has seen enough and directs the staff car driver to take them away from the field of combat in the direction from whence they came. Likewise witnessing the loss of both the north and south outposts and the destruction of the last tank of 1st Platoon, the remaining T-62s abandon their right forward echelon formation and reform into a standard line abreast configuration to await the impending fall of Sultan's dagger, fully aware that their command structure is no longer intact or viable. What is perhaps the most benign event affiliated with the Battle of Albeit now takes place amidst the ruins of the settlement. Captain Rix recalls the moment.
Not only had our journey to the objective been a hair-raising experience, it was followed by a full hour of fierce combat. The destruction of the T-62 at the West Gate marked an end to the siege, which was a huge relief to the entire complement, myself included. With the Abrams tanks and Company D taking matters into their own capable hands, my command was afforded the opportunity to decompress, somewhat. Even though our adrenaline levels immediately started to dip, we did not stop to relax. The unit survivors merely transitioned into other activities of a non-combat nature, which was the triage of our many casualties. I directed the troop to transfer the wounded personnel to the only structure still upright within the settlement. It was our duty and responsibility to make these men as comfortable as possible while they awaited medevac. Therefore, we commenced turning the insurgent safe house into an impromptu field aid station. During this period, I re-embarked the C2 so as to monitor the battle and to inspect the contents of a dubious backpack provided to me by the embedded news crew and their escorts. What I discovered was chilling.
Moments after having accessed the safe house roof, the two news crew escorts stumble upon a military satchel. Contained within it are two innocuous items of particular significance: a laptop computer and a NATO-issue hand radio. Upon further scrutiny, Captain Rix discovers that the radio is programmed with the exact frequencies to be used in the upcoming special operation to locate the nuclear terrorist faction in Al Jazeera, of which 4th LAR is to be a part. As for the PC, it contains encrypted data, which is easily deciphered to reveal the NATO force deployment and mission specs for said operation. It becomes clear that the bag was smuggled into Albeit for retrieval by the Iranians in order that they might aid the terrorists in evading the hunt and linking up with the Provisional Occupation Force in the Iraqi oil basin. It also explains why the task force avoided damaging the safe house and why the mortar barrage ceased function once resident contact was lost.
This is CyberNet reporting from northern Iraq. My cameraman has traversed the devastated ruins of the village formerly known as Albeit in order to bring you these pictures of the demise of the third and last Iranian T-62 to threaten the Marine garrison with direct assault. I've been told that the tank was destroyed by an insurgent IED. That's right. A roadside bomb that was originally intended for us. As you can see, the coming dawn reveals a sky filled with copious amounts of smoke from the massive burning vehicles strewn about the plain as a result of this tumultuous battle. A battle that is now in its latter stages, or at least I hope this to be the case. Behind me is the Sultan's dagger, the former home of the Iranian Task Force Command and Control Element. Marine ground troops are currently working their way into the dormant medieval bastion. It is my sincere desire that nothing perilous awaits them there. However, given recent events, I may be wishing too much.
Faced with entering their objective without the benefit of accessing either tower except via the east courtyard, the Marines of 2nd Squad press onward through the ground debris of a deteriorating stone fortress. Flanked by lofty walls to either side, the Leathernecks are prime targets for ambush, and they know it. In a last-ditch effort to save themselves from capture, the trapped Iranian heavy weapons command team elects to take advantage of the situation and pounce on the Marines with automatic weapons from the exposed facade of the Citadel's 2nd level. Caught in a firestorm of lead, the gritty Marines begin to falter. Yet, it is in moments like these that the indomitable spirit of the hero is forged from the blast furnace of trial and tribulation.
كنت أشاهد حكايات مكافحة الظاهرية على صاحب قصة قناة الإنترنت.